Welcome in everyone to another deep dive. This time we're exploring some real-world examples of agroecology in action.
Oh yeah, it's going to be exciting. We've got some pretty fascinating case studies lined up showcasing just how communities around the world are harnessing agroecological principles, I guess you could say, to really transform their food systems.
It really is amazing to see all these different approaches working in different contexts, right? From a fully organic state nestled in the Himalayas to decades-long research, right in the U.S. heartland.
Right.
We'll be uncovering those successes, the challenges, and most importantly, the lessons learned.
Yeah, for sure. It's like taking a global tour of innovation. I mean, you really get to see how people are working with nature instead of against it to create, those more sustainable and resilient ways of producing food.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
So first stop, Sikkim, India.
Okay.
This small state in the Himalayas made a pretty bold move back in 2016. They transitioned to becoming fully organic.
What's impressive about Sikkim is this wasn't just a grassroots movement. This was a deliberate policy decision by the government.
Wow.
They actually phased out chemical fertilizers and pesticides, providing training and support to farmers as they adopted traditional and organic farming techniques.
It makes you wonder, what were those techniques?
Yeah.
What did that transition actually look like on the ground?
Well, they revived many traditional practices, things like using cow dung and vermicompost as natural fertilizers.
Okay.
They also encouraged crop rotation and intercropping to manage pests and just generally improve soil health.
It sounds idyllic, but I'm sure it wasn't without its challenges, right?
It definitely wasn't. And initially there were concerns about yields and, just market access for organic produce.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
How did they overcome those challenges?
Well, they really focused on building those local markets and creating a certification system to guarantee that authenticity of their organic products. That really helped farmers get a premium price for their produce.
Oh, that's great.
And consumer demand for organic food within Sikkim itself actually increased.
That's a critical piece of the puzzle, right? Making sure that farmers can make a decent living while producing food sustainably.
Absolutely. Sikkim's story shows that it's possible. The state has seen a resurgence of biodiversity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With the return of beneficial insects and birds to the fields.
That's wonderful.
On top of that, farmers are reporting improved soil health and even increased yields over time.
So they actually ended up better off in the long run.
It seems that way, yeah.
That's remarkable. It makes you think, what would it take for other regions to make such a dramatic shift?
Sikkim's success does provide a compelling model.
Yeah.
But it also highlights the need for, strong political will and long-term commitment to support farmers through these transitions.
Absolutely. Now, from the Himalayas, let's shift gears and head over to the U.S., to the Rodale Institute in Pennsylvania. They've been at the forefront of regenerative organic agriculture research for decades.
What sets Rodale apart is their commitment to long-term side-by-side field trials.
Okay.
For over 40 years, they've been comparing conventional organic and regenerative organic farming systems.
Wow.
Meticulously tracking yields, soil health, and environmental impacts.
That's some serious dedication to scientific rigor. What have they discovered?
Their findings are groundbreaking. They've demonstrated that regenerative organic practices can not only match, but even exceed the yields of conventional agriculture over the long term.
Really?
And here's the kicker. They've proven that regenerative organic agriculture can actually sequester carbon in the soil, drawing it down from the atmosphere.
So they're not just growing food, they're actually fighting climate change.
Precisely. They've shown that regenerative organic practices can increase soil organic matter, which acts as a massive carbon sink. And this has huge implications for mitigating climate change. But what's equally important is that these practices also improve water infiltration and retention, reduce erosion, and enhance biodiversity.
It sounds almost too good to be true. What are these magical regenerative practices?
It's not magic. It's really about mimicking nature's processes.
Okay.
They focus on minimizing soil disturbance, keeping the soil covered with cover crops, and integrating livestock into the system. This helps build healthy soil ecosystems that are teeming with life, just like a natural forest floor.
Amazing. From rebuilding soil to rebuilding entire landscapes, our next stop takes us to the Machakos district in Kenya.
Okay.
This region was once severely degraded, but they managed to turn things around in a pretty dramatic way.
What's fascinating about Machakos is that they didn't rely on external aid or expensive technologies. They tapped into local knowledge and combined it with innovative techniques to restore their land. They implemented agroforestry, planting trees alongside crops to provide shade, improve soil fertility, and prevent erosion.
So they were essentially working with nature, not against it, to rebuild their environment.
Exactly. And they didn't stop there. They also introduced terracing to slow down water runoff and prevent soil erosion on the hillsides. They incorporated livestock into the system to provide manure and diversify their income. And they created community-managed water harvesting systems to increase water availability for both crops and livestock.
It's amazing how they were able to transform a degraded landscape into a productive and thriving ecosystem.
The results speak for themselves. Crop yields increased significantly, water availability improved, and the once barren hillsides are now covered in vegetation, providing food fodder and fuel wood for the community.
It's like watching a nature documentary in reverse, seeing the land come back to life.
Machacos is a powerful example of how agroecological principles can be applied, even in the most challenging environments.
It's a testament to human ingenuity and the power of community-driven solutions.
Yeah.
But it also raises the question, how do we scale up these successes? How do we share these lessons learned with other communities facing similar challenges?
That's where the power of networks and knowledge sharing comes in. And that's exactly what we'll explore in our next stop. The campesino movement in Latin America.
Very cool. I'm excited to learn more about that. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back to explore this farmer-to-farmer movement.
Sounds good.
Welcome back, everyone. We just witnessed how communities in Kenya took a really hands-on approach to revitalizing their land.
It's pretty incredible.
It really is. Now let's travel to Latin America and explore a movement that's all about sharing knowledge and empowering farmers.
Okay, it's good.
This is the campesino movement, which translates to farmer to farmer.
Right.
It's a remarkable example of how grassroots knowledge sharing can drive such widespread change in agriculture.
It really is.
So instead of relying on outside experts, they're learning from each other.
Precisely. They recognize that farmers are the true experts of their own land, and that traditional knowledge passed down through generations holds really valuable solutions. This movement facilitates the exchange of those solutions through field visits, workshops, farmer-led demonstrations.
So it's like a peer-to-peer network for sustainable farming where experience is the most valuable currency.
You got it. Farmers travel to each other's farms, observe different techniques, share their successes and failures, and really adapt those lessons to their own contexts.
So they're constantly experimenting and innovating and building upon each other's knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. What kinds of techniques are they sharing?
Everything from seed saving and natural pest control to water conservation and soil fertility management.
Wow.
Yeah, for example, they might learn how to create biofertilizers using local resources or how to design agroforestry systems that provide, multiple benefits like shade fruit and fodder.
It's like this approach seems so incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
They're not waiting for someone else to provide solutions.
Yeah.
They're taking matters into their own hands.
That's the beauty of it. It's not just about adopting new techniques. It's about building confidence, fostering leadership, and creating a sense of ownership over their food systems.
As we've journeyed across the globe from Sikkim to Kenya and now Latin America, I'm struck by the common threads that connect these seemingly diverse approaches.
Oh, absolutely. While the specific practices may differ based on local context,
Sure.
There's a shared philosophy at the heart of all these success stories.
Like what?
Well, for starters, there's a deep respect for nature. They're not trying to dominate or control nature, but rather work in harmony with its rhythms and cycles.
It's like they're rediscovering the ancient wisdom of working with nature, not against it.
Exactly. Another commonality is the emphasis on diversity. Whether it's crop diversity, livestock integration, or agroforestry, they understand that creating complex ecosystems enhances resilience.
It's like the opposite of monoculture, where everything is the same and vulnerable to a single threat.
Right. A diverse system is like a safety net where if one element fails, others can step in and maintain that balance. And this leads to greater stability, both ecologically and economically.
And speaking of economics, it seems like these agroecological approaches are actually benefiting farmers financially.
That's a crucial point. For agroecology to be truly sustainable, it needs to be economically viable for farmers.
Right.
And we've seen this play out in all of our case studies. By reducing their reliance on expensive external inputs, improving soil health, and diversifying their income streams, these farmers are creating more resilient and profitable livelihoods.
It's like they're breaking free from that industrial model of agriculture that often traps farmers in a cycle of debt and dependency.
Yeah, and by strengthening local food systems, they're also increasing food security and sovereignty within their communities. They're not at the mercy of fluctuating global markets or unpredictable weather patterns. They're creating a more stable and self-reliant food system from the ground up.
I'm also noticing the importance of community in all these success stories.
Mm.
It's not just individual farmers toiling away in isolation. It's about collective action, shared knowledge, and mutual support.
You're absolutely right. Whether it's the farmer-to-farmer networks in Latin America or the community-managed water systems in Kenya, collaboration and knowledge sharing are at the heart of their success. They recognize that they're stronger together and that by working together, they can overcome challenges and create a more just and sustainable food system for all.
It's so inspiring to see how these communities are coming together like this to create, more sustainable and resilient food systems.
Yeah, it is.
As we wrap up our deep dive into agroecology in action, what are some of the most important takeaways you think our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, one crucial lesson is that agroecology isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a set of principles that can be adapted and applied to, diverse contexts, from small-scale farms to entire regions. It's about understanding your unique ecological and social landscape and finding solutions that work best for you and your community.
So it's not about copying what worked in Sycamore, Kenya,
right,
but rather extracting those underlying principles,
yeah,
and applying them creatively to your own situation.
Exactly. And those principles are all about working with nature, not against it.
Okay.
It's about mimicking natural processes, building soil health, enhancing biodiversity, and creating closed-loop systems where waste becomes a resource.
It's like shifting our mindset from one of extraction and domination to one of collaboration and regeneration.
You got it. And this shift in mindset is so crucial.
Yeah.
We need to see ourselves as part of the ecosystem, not separate from it. We need to recognize that our actions have consequences and that by working with nature, we can create a more harmonious and sustainable future for all.
It all sounds so hopeful and inspiring.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are still challenges and obstacles to overcome.
Right. Of course. Transitioning to agroecological systems isn't always easy. It often requires a change in practices, infrastructure, and even policies. Farmers may need access to training resources and markets that support sustainable agriculture.
So it's not just about individual farmers changing their practices. It's about creating a supportive environment for agroecology to thrive.
Exactly. We need supportive policies that incentivize sustainable practices, invest in research and development, and promote fair markets for agroecological products.
Right.
We also need to educate consumers about the benefits of agroecology and encourage them to support farmers who are producing food in a way that's good for both people and the planet.
It sounds like a systemic shift is needed,
Yeah.
where everyone plays a role, from farmers to policymakers to consumers.
Exactly. We need a collective effort to transform our food system into one that's truly sustainable, equitable, and resilient. And the good news is that this transformation is already underway.
That's great to hear.
We've seen it in the inspiring case studies we've explored, and countless other initiatives are sprouting up around the world.
So how can our listeners get involved? What can they do to support this movement?
There are so many ways to contribute. Start by supporting local farmers who are using agroecological practices.
Okay.
Shop at farmers markets, join a community-supported agriculture program, or even grow some of your own food.
What about those of us who aren't farmers?
Advocate for policies that support sustainable agriculture. Talk to your elected officials, get involved in local food policy councils, and support organizations that are working to promote agroecology.
It's empowering to realize that we all have a role to play in creating a more sustainable food future.
Absolutely. Every action, no matter how small, can contribute to this collective effort. By working together, we can create a food system that nourishes both people and the planet.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into agroecology in action. We hope you've been inspired by the stories we've shared and are ready to take action in your own communities.
Absolutely.
Remember, a more sustainable and just food system is within our reach. It starts with each of us embracing the principles of agroecology and working together to create a world where everyone has access to healthy, affordable, and sustainably produced food.
Couldn't have said it better myself.